Lower carb, higher fat diets tend to work really well with intermittent fasting. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. And again, one of those cases where it almost might sound counterintuitive, but it really doesn't. You know, when you point this out, it's like, well, because you have lower food volume, right? More fat, less carbohydrates, the food's a little less bulky, while still oftentimes being whole foods. And then people say, okay, but isn't one of the reasons with intermittent fasting that it works is because, you get full and then you're not hungry in the mornings while you're fasted, and then that you fill up on food later, right? It's like, well, yeah. But the problem we run into is that sometimes when you're doing it with whole foods, and then a lot of carbohydrates, it bloats you to the extreme to where you're uncomfortable. You can have uncomfortable swings in blood sugar levels and all these things, okay? This is one of the downsides to fasting, right? It's one of the downsides to fasting. But when you tend to fill your feed window with fats, particularly in the form of whole foods, right? We're not talking junk food. I'm not telling you to eat butter, a bunch of vegetable oils or any of that. I'm telling you whole foods, steak, eggs, avocados, maybe nuts, things like that, right? This is what we're talking about. Whole foods. All right. A little bit different. We still get good nutritional value, but they tend to fill you up and you stay full because, again, there's a good satiation. You have good satiation in spite of a little less food volume. Well, the thing is, you end up not feeling bloated as much to the same degree when you do this. Okay, so this is kind of an important consideration, right? You don't feel bloated. You also don't get any big spikes in blood sugar, because that's one of the issues we do have when you eat all your food in a smaller window. Even if it's a slightly slower digesting carb, which again tends to be uncomfortable, you still oftentimes will get for many people, unless you're in really, really good shape, you will oftentimes still get a slight hypoglycemic effect, or jokingly, some people call it the itis down in the South. Heard it called that before. So you'll have that problem, which is, again, like a shift in blood sugar and then a production of melatonin. It'll make you tired, make you sleepy, make you lethargic. All right, this is not desirable. And whereas if you're getting most of the calories from fat, it's a much slower release of energy. We don't have as robust of a blood sugar response. We don't have as robust of an insulin response or any of that. So you get much more stable energy levels. And you get that without like a significant gastrointestinal discomfort. And then if you've got protein in there, you're still getting, obviously, your slow release of glucose through gluconeogenesis. You're getting a nice thermic effect because, again, you're eating significant amounts of protein, hopefully. These are still protein-rich foods, which I've talked about in the past of when you're fasting. One of the things with a high-protein diet, when you're fasting, is it doesn't have the same impact as far as calories do the same. And here's what I mean. When you are in your fasted window, you're burning through fat, you're burning through body fat easier, you're getting into the energy reserves of your body a little more, okay, as opposed to just calories in, calories out throughout the day. Now, the argument is made is it's still going to balance out because you eat all of that food, right, in the morning. And then so you're still going to be in a surplus. If you overeat, you'll gain body fat. And if you're in deficit, you'll lose weight. Okay, fair enough. But people are not factoring in calories in, calories out is on a continual hourly cycle. It's not a dynamic process that's happening continually. Okay, so during that window where you're creating those deficits, it is easier to get into your body fat stores, right? During those fasted windows. All right, so you have that situation. And then in the feed window, the argument would be, well, if you eat a bunch of certain foods, you're going to store more fat during that window. And there's definitely truth to that, because that's when you're getting all the food. So some of the fat cells that lost size throughout the day may regain a little bit. Except what happens when you eat a large amount of protein? Well, protein itself has a significant thermic effect that requires you to get energy. Okay, you see where I'm about to go with this? The thermic effect from protein doesn't come from the protein itself. Like when you take protein and convert it into carbohydrate through gluconeogenesis, okay? You ready for this? It uses calories, right? So if you're eating a large, robust amount of protein, you might use up 100 or more calories, right? You may use up 100 or more calories to convert it into glucose. It's coming from other places in your body. The protein itself isn't providing that energy. Your body's utilizing resources to break it down inefficiently. And the same thing to metabolize some of it for fuel. So it's still getting that from your body fat. What? Because you haven't fed the body fat anything new yet, and you're still usually assimilating some of that fat you just ate. Your body is going to get its carbohydrate from that, and so it's going to tap further into that. It's going to end up creating, even though some of that fat you're eating may be storing as body fat, it may be storing as body fat, it's probably not as much because the higher protein is creating a thermic effect competing for some of that energy. All right. So what you find is with some of this, you end up getting a more robust thermic effect instead of fat storage during that window. Okay. The other thing is things like circulating insulin levels are going to tend to be lower. If you're eating mostly healthy fats, and let's say there's a robust amount of omega-3 in there, which tends to speed up fat burning. All right, what ends up happening is that you end up getting a larger amount of thermic effect in the body as a result of some of this. Okay, some of your fat storage gets blunted. So you're not violating calories in, calories out. Okay, you're not violating it at all. You're just shifting it slightly to your advantage. So you end up with some really good potential for better body recomposition by doing it this way. Because then you're in a situation where you're having to get any glycogen and glucose you need from these later foods you're eating, which requires use of energy to do. It's an inefficient process. Okay, the inefficient process. Plus, at this point, if you're eating this way, your body is probably largely fat adapted. It's going to want to generally burn fat as a fuel source. Okay, and it's going to tend to store carbohydrate as glycogen and only use it more of when it needs to. Again, it's a very, very interesting situation you can create, and people tend to lose body fat very rapidly when doing this approach, especially if they're training during that fasted window. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.